So what Tim had posted was planning virtual events, user groups, meetings, and conferences. And talking about how into the pandemic for a full year, been experimenting with a lot of different things, including 2 versions of Midcamp. And he wanted to talk about two other virtual event planners about what was working, what was not working, and the future of online events after face-to-face events also come back into style. So one thing that I had on my mind, or I've had on my mind, is how do I best move to, with our local user group, how do I best move to like a more of a hybrid type of a thing, so that we can keep our audience that we've gathered from around the world and have that still available to them as well. Kevin goes,
I mean, oh, all right, good. We've got a doc. I mean, that's a challenge. Sorry, I'm opening a tab. Well, I need access.
Hang on.
Okay.
Please hold. I put it in the wrong place to begin with. So.
That's cool. Like I know early days of Midcamp, we struggled with getting everyone in the same room physically. And so we tried a hybrid approach of our planning meetings. And that was challenging just because audio issues, et cetera, about just, granted, I don't know how it's evolved since then to like have people participate virtually plus in real life over the same medium. And maybe that was our problem, is like we were having a Zoom talk with several people in the room, and so you're having all the audio echo issues and stuff like that. But like at London, where they kind of had to force hybridize their event last March, they had people in person, and then the presenters were presenting via Zoom. But again, attendees weren't really presenting via Zoom. So I don't know. I guess testing. But I agree, like that's going to be the next challenge, because I think if there's a in-person Midcamp next year, we need to figure out the hybrid component. Which raises a question that April asked at one point in Slack, is how do you cross the bandwidth barrier? Because not all venues can support the bandwidth needs of essentially a streaming event.
I put a link. The link in the chat should work now.
yep.
And you can put your name in as an attendee if you want.
So just logistically thinking about that, if I'm in a small a small meeting space and it's really small group, user group type of thing, and we have the bandwidth, I guess I'm kind of thinking right now that we would have the person doing the presenting, if they're live, having them on a mic and mic'd up to share either the presentation screen or a presentation that they might have online showing on a screen. And then have someone running a Zoom, kind of mentoring a Zoom or something like that with the remote people. so that they can be watching the chat and asking questions and relaying back and forth that way. But I'm also thinking if we have a speaker that's external, we've tried that a couple times, and we really need a more powerful set of speakers, and we really need something that's going to project a little better than a projector does, because they're just not worth anything on a, showing a Zoom screen. So that's kind of my thinking right now, is that we'd have an MC, a speaker, either remote or live, and a mentor or someone kind of facilitating the Zoom end of things. And that's as far as I've thought about it. And I haven't done any testing at all with any of that kind of thing. So not sure what kind of equipment to even look at.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would definitely, again, it's too bad Tim's not here, because I've seen on the TC Drupal Twitter images of their lunch and learn, where they've got people in person and on Zoom. So there's people like in a U-shaped seating arrangement watching a live speaker, and you can see on the speaker slides, there's, the Zoom bubbles of virtual attendees. So TC Drupal is doing that now but I don't know to what extent or the level of their success.
Cool.
Because it could just be that rather than maybe the presenter is actually presenting via Zoom in the room, and it's just a matter of managing audio for a live presenter.
And I know the schools, the teachers are doing this right now.
Yeah.
And my wife is having only moderate success with it. She's really struggling because, trying to present and watch the kids by herself, it's like impossible. I don't know how she's even coming close.
It definitely helps to have a second person. So that's why I was putting on there, like, it'd be good to have an in-person host and a virtual host for each sort of space. Like, even for, like, if you were doing a camp and you had a session, having someone in person to run things, but someone getting questions from Zoom and managing any technical issues between the session and the Zoom. And I use Zoom as just Zoom, whatever it is, something similar.
Yeah.
The added benefit is it really lowers the barrier of recording sessions, regardless of format. So then it just becomes a matter of processing the recorded videos and uploading them somewhere.
Right.
And they're like, for discrete sessions, there's this new tool that I've checked out. I think David Needham, you recommended, is that, of course, I'm forgetting the name of it. It begins with a D. Descript, yeah. It's very low cost. It does, basically you upload a video, it will transcribe it. And then as you edit the transcription, you can fix words and it will kind of deep fake or edit the video so that you can actually change what the video says, which is a little terrifying, but by editing the start stop, by deleting text, it trims the video that way. So you take away the need for any video editing software or skill, really, because you're just editing text. And the system is figuring out how the video matches that. It was incredibly impressive. And it's a real low cost from what I remember. I think you get a few hours free of like transcriptions. It's all based on transcription length. So like if you have a monthly meetup and you've got an hour of transcription a month, it's probably free. For a camp, it would probably be less than $100. I think it's because you pay by number of hours and seats. So if you've got 2 or 3 people working on videos, you're going to see maybe $200 cost if you've got 40 or so videos. But it also goes beyond, like you can remove all the ums instantly. Like, I don't know how that would work with, like the issue with that then is like, well, how does that work with any transcription service, right? So you'd almost have to then throw away all of that and count on user edited transcriptions, which again, it's just a giant text editor. So interesting. And you can share from that directly to your YouTube channel. So it's really there is a bandwidth issue of downloading the videos from whatever recorded them and then uploading them to Descript, but then you don't have to re-download and re-upload. So that at least saves that. Where I'm seeing is, like for Florida, I got all day recordings. So that doesn't work in that model because you can.
So all the sessions were one video. They were all stacked into one video.
Yeah. And that's how we did it for Midcamp because it worked out well for me. But I think the traditional method of start stop, you then have a very easy way to trim. I forget. I took a couple camp videos from a virtual camp and used that as a test, and it was just super simple.
What about platforms? We're using GatherTown. We've used Hopin. Anybody want to talk about a platform?
I have an observation on platforms, and that is that too many people are trying to do too many things with too many things. So
yeah, it feels like they're getting in the
for me,
way.
it's like, where the hell am I going?
I know, I remember your comment when we were using Hopin, but we were also chatting in Slack. And so there was a lot of like,
Where do you
that
find this person?
task switching brain is like
Yeah.
exploding. So.
Yeah.
And it only increases because like GatherTown is GatherTown plus Slack plus Zoom, because GatherTown just sends you to Zoom for the session.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the fewer tools used across the board, the better, ultimately, to make it easier for people to deal with, like in a perfect world, everybody would have known how to use Miro this morning and all the people would have been there. But even I was struggling with it because I haven't had enough time with it. And I'd had the benefit of being able to be on it. So
for work, we've used Jitsi, but we basically, I mean, the reason we chose Jitsi is that we had a requirement that it had to be self-hosted, and we had to be able to control everything, which basically left Jitsi, and it worked well for us.
And remind me what Jitsi is, like what flavor of platform?
it's like a Zoom. Like a Zoom, right?
Yeah, it's like Zoom.
Okay, got it. I wasn't sure if it was also like because Hopin adds the kind of like schedule overlay and rooms for things all in one spot. GatherTown is a little less than that. So I guess that's the ultimate, is like what problem or experience are we trying to deliver?
Sure. Yeah, and with Jitsi, we had pre-created rooms, but we also gave people the ability to create their own ad hoc rooms on the fly, which increased the amount of support that was needed. But it was just something that was part of the requirements we were given. But it seemed to work well. And the situation that we had was maybe odd, but we had people on site that were mostly gathered together in a room. Some people that were on site, but kind of out in the field using cell phones to connect in. And then people across the country that were they were all connected using VMs in Amazon. So it was kind of convoluted, but again, it gave us control over everything, because one of the odd, unusual feature or requirements is that we had to be able to keep anybody from getting data out of the system. So by them connecting to our portal, which then got them to a VM, and then within the VM, they had all tools, including Jitsi and some other stuff. And despite all of the various steps, it all seemed to actually work really well.
How many people did you host on that?
There were a few hundred. I'm not sure the exact number, but I think it was between 200 and 300.
Wow.
The servers, the VMs were in Amazon, the AWS GovCloud, and the Jitsi server was on site at University of Illinois. And here we have a 10 gig connection. And then also we had a 10 gig connection at a remote location. So that, that helps.
Yeah. And doing it that way, did you have, were you going through the Jitsi communications hub type of thing too, or does the server take care of all the direct connections for the remotes, or?
I mean, so because everybody had to access Jitsi via a VM in Amazon. Yeah, I mean, it was, I guess you could say it was all managed by the Jitsi server.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I think it's also worth discussing expectations about attendance in relation to virtual burnout, whether for local meetups or larger events. Like I feel the intent of this Midcamp to be something different helped. Hard to say how successful it was yet, because like attendance seems lower today than any of the days, and today was the content day. But it's also an unconference, which is not for everybody. So, but also our intent wasn't to have a packed place. It was to give people the choice to hop in, hop off. Sorry for hop in. not that platform, but I think it's a change in expectation from the organizer perspective, is like recognizing, thanks to Avi, that it is important that we still do this, and just change our expectations of what outcome means success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important.
I also like that your schedule for doing things. I mean, this may just be because I'm not in the central time zone, but it feels like the schedule is kind of condensed. It starts later, it ends early. Social events are earlier, so people can take care of their home responsibilities. I thought that was kind of nice, and it does feel nice. Like I don't
Yeah.
feel too. I'm tired of my headphones being on my head for sure, but it's doable, and I can still see people, and then go eat dinner and do whatever. And then also weekdays instead of weekends, because we're so like Zoom burned out. Like I don't want to sit in front of a computer on the weekend. It would be different. It would be totally different if it were in person, because it's not sitting in front of a computer.
Right.
It's being with people. So there's this weird dynamic there.
Yeah, the timing was very much intentional. Like, get work done, before you show up if you need to. Like, yeah, I actually I did some karaoke on like Wednesday at 4:00, and I was like, okay, I could go eat dinner now. And yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, we actually we almost pushed the socials to later because some of the feedback internally is like, it's awfully early to start. But my thinking was, if you stop at 4 and then have a gap, now someone has a harder choice to come back than like at a live event, right? Whereas if you just keep going, then you already have some critical mass, and if people are there and enjoying it and want to step away, then they've already got some stake in coming back. The hard part is like figuring what a stop time. Like we just put 7, but it's like it can go for whenever, because you're not being kicked out.
Right.
And it's like we've had people go like they're officially 4 to 7, but like easily 8 to 9 so far on both days. So we'll see what tonight is. But I think I've been pleased with the socials so far.
Yeah. I joined late. I don't know what other stuff you guys have talked about. You all have talked about.
Here's our doc.
Oh, cool. There's a doc.
Tim beat me.
Nice.
Fast with the copy pasta.
Yours is probably better too, because mine was just out of the browser, not the actual share link.
Yeah, I only recently discovered that copy ... in the Zoom chat. That's super handy.
Wait, what?
If you go next to
Oh yeah.
Right,
Copying
and it
URL.
literally says copy, but it's
Yep.
I guess just for you. No, it's even for text too.
The whole
But
thing.
yeah, that little whatever in that bubble.
Nice.
Well, because as I've been doing links throughout the chats and some of the openings, because like as people come late, it's like, what was that link again? It's like, oh, it's right here, and that was super handy.
That is handy. I didn't know that one. Good to know.
Always love those TIL moments.
I put this in Twitter. I'll put a screenshot in here too, but the whole ticket sales thing for virtual events. I'm taking a screenshot. So our ticket sales are like silly. We sold 100 tickets this week.
Yeah, super last minute.
Yeah. So like the numbers are absurd. Like as of our last official planning meeting, of last Wednesday, like I think we had like 80 or 90 tickets, and now we're at like 216.
Wow.
Like, weren't there even like 23 last night?
Yeah, yeah. It's.
I mean, I think free helps a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But that also means fewer people might show. And again, for a virtual event, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with catering numbers.
Right.
True. If you tried to do that with one that was catered. Oh,
that's why we didn't do a free event for Midcamp ever, because we don't have the voluminous space to deal with.
Right.
Either they all show or they don't. And then how do you plan catering?
What about pricing? I mean, the cost for a virtual event, in my experience, has been way lower than in person.
Yeah.
I mean, it very much depends on the platform that you choose. And that was kind of, sorry, I have a lot of thoughts on things, so I have a lot of words.
Yeah.
That's what we're
I
here
mean,
for.
plus add-ons, because we're doing the video captioning service after the fact.
Right.
So yeah,
But yeah,
there are still costs, but no catering, no venue.
but yeah, I mean, we had kind of some, I don't know, challenges at the beginning trying to figure out planning, because like, you know, our costs, the range of our cost was like, you know, $1,000 to $10,000. Like, if we decided to use Zoom, like, which we already had licenses for, you know, the venue is basically free.
Yeah, because there's some great services out there that are super expensive. Like, what was that one that you demoed for EOWG? Like, it's the new one that was gaining ground after Hopin, but like I recall their price being so high.
Yeah, it was like
10 grand was
10 grand
discounted.
minimum.
Yeah.
One called Run the World. Was that it?
No, that wasn't it. I've not heard
Okay.
of that one.
I think it's kind of like Hopin.
This was like made by some Python folks or something.
Friends of Doug Van. That's all I know.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
their name. Oh yeah, he
It
was
should be.
doing that demo thing, right?
Yeah, he was. Yes.
Yeah,
What do you
it was interesting. It looked like a really cool platform. But it was just like, yeah. It was,
Yeah, high price and low actual street testing. Because if anyone's going to break an event, it's going to be a Drupal event, I think.
right.
And we'll be vocal about it and explain.
Air Meet, I think, was used by DrupalCon Europe, right? But I
don't know. I
did
didn't
not have
do
any
that one.
experience with that.
I guess back to platforms, accessibility is an issue because GatherTown has issues, Zoom has issues, like they all have issues, right? And so that's also a matter of making choices, really.
Oh, we have a
Loudswarm
thing
was the-
called platforms up further in the
Oh.
thing.
Oh, cool.
Or venues/platform is probably a good.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, Loudswarm was the one that we got demoed.
Oh, that was like a wrapper for Zoom, wasn't it?
Yes, but with a whole bunch of other stuff. It was like a wrapper for Zoom and Slack and like your website. It was very much like a conference platform built by a bunch of like API nerds.
Because I do recall an issue with Hopin, like the video quality was not great.
Yeah, well, they're using it for DrupalCon again this year, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
It
we're
also sounds
planning
like-
to use that too.
Hopin.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was frustrated with Hopin last year. It just didn't work great for me. But it'll be interesting to see. Like, I'm sure they've gotten better.
I'm trying to remember what WordCamp was using, at least early on, because they were sort of leading the way. I can't find it.
Swamp card.
Yeah, I want to think they used Hopin too, but I don't know why I think that.
It was something else, at least in the beginning it was, but I
Okay.
can't. There's also some different ways that people are doing something similar to GatherTown that I wonder what accessibility they might have. So it's like, let me see if I bookmarked one of them.
Yeah, a couple came up that.
Wonder,
Yep.
not wander, wonder.me.
Yeah, that one like had no accessibility statement at all, where at least GatherTown has, well, here's what we know.
We had there were a couple. There was a conversation in Camp Slack at some point about some of those. Spatial chat was the other one that somebody brought in. And they both seem like very slimmed down versions of GatherTown, which is good or bad, but
I guess they're all pretty young.
yeah. I mean, and they're all basically just like put some stuff on a canvas, and like I think that's I think it oh yeah, the work venture, I've seen that too. That also seemed that seemed much more like we're gonna do exactly GatherTown. But I mean the accessibility for those also just seems like really hard. Like how do you integrate like voice accessibility or like voice descriptions or whatever into a like video game, right? Like you're now putting a video game in a web browser and trying to figure out how to make that work for everybody.
I'm adding a accessibility at the bottom and just calling them spatial platforms. So it's kind of like you're making something that can be flat-ish, like a video with a transcript or a chat window, and making it spatial, which then makes it less accessible.
Yeah.
Some alternatives, so like, and you all did this too, and Florida did this, when you have GatherTown, you also have the ways to access the calls, the Zoom rooms outside of GatherTown, so people can access them in both ways. I'm working with some people at Lullabot to make a scavenger hunt in Work Adventure for DrupalCon for like a social event. And so it's a similar kind of thing, right? You come in, you can video chat, and we have a scavenger hunt piece to it. But I'm like, this is not very accessible. Like if somebody wanted to participate in some of the group calls, maybe we could make those Jitsi calls available for people to join. Like if they signed up, they would have them in the email so they could just pop in and interact with people that way. But it's not going to be, you can't make that experience accessible. At least not with today's tools, probably.
Correct.
Indeed, yep.
I mean, this goes into the other conversation that we're going to have at some point. Is accessible doesn't mean the same thing to everyone.
No.
No, and I think it's just a matter of clarity. Like I'm advocating next year that we have a code of conduct agreement on our ticket, but also an acknowledgement checkbox to show that as an attendee, I'm aware of what your tools are and what you can provide for me. And if that's not adequate, I know what my options are, and I know the extent that your event will go. Because working on assumptions is risk. And good intent doesn't always pan out, I guess. I'm curious too about sponsors and how, like, I know right now it's sort of just goodwill, and that doesn't sit great with me, because like I get it, but depending on how long this goes, you know, events have to provide value to sponsors too. And there's so many, like I don't think I thought of this too late, but we should add like a daily check-in with sponsors, and we should like do this even for in-person events too. Like Midcamp, we granted in person it's easier, but like we're doing a nightly check-in call this year. But it occurred to me that we should be doing that with sponsors and even in person, so that, you know, we can address needs at least daily, if not sooner, because obviously if something comes up, we'll address it. But, you know, we can take advantage of things more quickly if we're just more in touch with various groups, right?
Yep. And Kevin Leonard did a sponsor check-in, or a sponsor like tour on Wednesday that was really nice. Like it was basically like got all the sponsors in GatherTown at the beginning and just like showed them their booths and kind of walked them around and kind of gave them the lay of the land. So that was a really great thing that he kind of took and ran with. So it was nice. But checking in more would be good.
I'd be curious to know what the interactions were like in GatherTown, if people are going to the booths, stuff like that.
It seemed like not a ton from what I saw.
I do think Hopin provides the better experience for sponsors.
Better sponsor experience, yeah.
It's just, and mostly because Hopin is the issue with GatherTown for a sponsor booth is you've already fractured everybody, right? Whereas Hopin is like, if you got everything's in Hopin, you don't have an alternate way to get to it. We're giving people Zoom links, which means they never have to go to GatherTown, which means potentially never seeing the sponsors. So that is, I think, a big pro in the Hopin experience, is that amongst everything, I'm seeing like well represented sponsor like imagery. And I know from experience, like chatting with the sponsor booths, granted I'm friends with most of them, was the highlight of my DrupalCon last year, because these were the people I missed seeing in person. Granted, I'm not a lead for them, so I don't know how much value that adds, but it's just a tough, you know, which also I know we did have, because we sort of missed an opportunity because we didn't change our permissions on the ticket. So we currently don't give email addresses, but some sponsors kind of pointed out that now that we're not in person, that's even more important than it used to be. So I think that's something events and organizers have to change their thinking on, is allowing or even encouraging attendees to give their email for sponsor contact, possibly with messaging like this wouldn't happen without sponsors. So, you know, please support them, versus don't see them as a nuisance or as a pitch.
Yeah, I know Hopin allows for, like, you can go and check that you're interested or whatever, and it parses those out into lists for each sponsor. So that's kind of nice. One thing that we were looking at for benefits, I know we're at time, so I don't know, I'll finish this up, and then if anybody wants to finish things up, instead of doing a guaranteed session, doing like a room sponsorship, but like having a sponsor be allowed to either provide content that would be read out before a session by a host, or provide a host that can say, hey, I'm with whatever, and this is what we do, and then now I'm going to introduce the speaker for this room and that sort of thing, to have some sort of visibility in front of people.
Providing a host is a brilliant idea, and why didn't we have this conversation a month ago? Because now
Yeah,
you have a
exactly that.
volunteer and you have someone that the sponsor is choosing to invest that time specifically to give messaging and keep things smooth. So that's a win-win, right?
But I mean, it's hard. I mean, I think what we tried to do last year before things got canceled was to kind of have a variety of different options, which made things hard in itself. But I think, I mean, having worked with the sponsors for a number of years, like everybody has different needs. And so like, we had a sponsor this year that was super interested in getting as many of their people to do talks as they could. Like we have sponsors who really wanted to do trainings. We have sponsors who just want to give us money in the most complicated way possible and don't want anything for it. They're more than one of those. So it's really everybody has different needs from the sponsorship side.
All right, any closing remarks before we wrap this up? I'm sure we could talk all day about this.
We should talk about the intro to Drupal stuff. We could talk about this on the side, April, but this like onboarding thing that we were talking about with the event organizers working group and trying to have consistent sessions across camps, that I like attempted this at Drupal at Midcamp, and we did. But I think it could have been planned better. We could have prepped the content earlier.
So you think we'll pull that into like growing the Drupal community in the next block?
Wait, where?
That's in Navy Pier Room.
Oh,
Those
cool, sure.
two sessions that I put out, one more focused on user groups and how to grow those, and Tara King put one out as well. So both of them, we're kind of moshing them both together.
Super.
That's in the Navy Pier Room if we wanted to swing over there to that one. The other ones that are going on next are visual regression testing, Git-based workflows, hybrid decoupled, and hiring with diversity in mind. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I don't know why. Yeah.
I'm going to put a link to our node stock into the session node.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.